this is interesting, actually, and it relates to fear. So let's talk about this.
Well
because
done.
I think that when we don't need to make this a political podcast, but I'm just saying, when you look at the political landscape and when people get so heated about what they're talking about, there's a fear component to it. They are afraid that if they don't voice this opinion or do everything they can to like explain why what they think is important, that there are negative things that are going to come as a result, right? Right? And I feel like this is the same on each end. It's like, well, if I don't spread this information that's so important to me, then this will happen. If then, right? Like it's like this if then statement. And a lot of these posts and reactions are very like fear-based, coming out of a place that like, no, this this group doesn't understand the truth on both sides. I'm putting it in air quotes, so don't come for me. But like, we use fear as a tool. I guess this is the point of what I'm trying to say. Like, fear is a tool that we use in our everyday life, whether it is like top-down messaging from like the highest up, or we're trying to persuade or convince someone to do something, or we're trying to convince or persuade ourselves to do something. Like, it's a motivating tool, right? Talk amongst yourselves. That's where I'm starting this today.
Yeah. Well, I think even just the note, like why people, and when we're motivating ourselves in that sense, like, because you don't feel the need to pretend to be like a professor of academia in Facebook comments because you believe in something, right? Like those, you may be passionate about something, but that doesn't mean that that's why you do that. And I think Rebecca and I have talked about it before in like one of the wokeness episodes, where it's like, it's because these things are centered around something that in its purest form is completely fine to support.
Yeah.
That it makes it so easy for them to camouflage the real reason why people, have to do this, is because it's because of this cause, right? But really it's like, okay, so you're going to correct this person according to your all-knowing perspective in a Facebook comment, and that's going to change what?
Exactly.
Oh, the Native Americans didn't get smallpox blankets anymore. There you go. Slaves never happened. Now that you have explained how things actually worked in the Deep South, like none of this stuff changes anything. It just makes
it
them
gives
feel
them
more
like a
important.
sense of validation, right? So
Right.
it's like, if I can go to this large group of people and it's like, oh, I'm going to answer this one person, knowing everyone else is going to see it. It's like, well, you're going to see how righteous I am, how smart I am, how much, how insightful I am. And it's like, oh, I'm going to take it upon myself to educate everybody else. And it's like, you're just typing on Facebook, man. Like, you're not really making a difference. And
Right.
like, and if you do want to, like, by all means, but find ways that you're actually going to make an impact. Go insert yourselves into the causes, go do things, to sit here and like rant on Facebook and get all high and mighty about it because you think people are gonna think you're making a difference. Like, I'm not quite sure about that.
But like the hilarious part about this all too, to me, is that like, to your point, Rebecca, if you have something you're very passionate about, and like, I'm sorry, it looks like I'm a ghost because of my lighting.
It's the shining light of truth.
If you have something and you're like, I am so passionate about people knowing that I think Columbus was actually
marshmallow
Santa, and I want everyone to know, post about it on your own wall. But as soon as you get in an argument with someone, you've already lost. If you're trying to convince someone who doesn't see eye to eye with you directly, absolutely no way. And Isaac and I have talked about this before too, where like the science shows that, how people are like, facts don't care about your feelings. Like we've heard this like notion before. It's like actually the opposite, where your feelings don't give one fuck about facts, because your feelings are going to supersede whatever facts you see. And there are enough facts around that you can cherry pick the ones you like and be like, no, here are the facts. So you already lost if you're like, Isaac posted that he thinks that black vintage Juicy Couture sweatshirts are stupid, and I'm gonna tell him he's wrong. Like, he's never gonna change his mind about it, ever. Fear.
Yeah. I think that even just the notion of why people, because again, like coming back to like why people, like what insecurity is it that compels people to do that? You know, because there is insecurity in general, but it's like people aren't Disney villains, right? We aren't bad people who do things because we want to twirl our mustaches. Like it's just not realistic. And whenever a perspective puts that forward, it's chances are that the person's full of shit. Even people like Charles Manson and whatnot, if you go back deep enough into their history, you know, you look at like the friggin' interviews that he did that looked like batshit crazy. Well, if you go far back enough into his past, it was completely booty. And so that doesn't even mean in a sense of like feeling compassion for him. It just means that like these things are never as simple as, oh, this is a bad person, right?
No.
So when you think of like the nature of the fear that's compelling them to do that, I mean, to a certain extent, it is habit by this point, right? Because like everybody else is talking and like it's always going on. And then there's like, oh, this person said something. Oh, this person said something. That person said something. It's the same thing as, well, you probably both know, like that pack mentality. Like if one dog starts barking, if you have just one dog, you may be able to calm it down. But if you have another dog,
Yeah, you're
like
so screwed.
I was just in my brother's house yesterday, and they have a really small old blind dog who like just starts barking at things because, you know, she's like, well, there's something over there and she can't tell what it is.
Yeah.
And then they have this big husky German Shepherd mix who was completely chill until that dog started barking. It's like, "Nah, nah, I'll show you what I'm
Yeah.
barking at."
What's going on? We'll get them together.
Yeah, that like pack mentality, right?
Yeah. So I do think that like a lot of it is, I mean, I guess I don't really have like a defined perspective of like why people's fear would compel them to do that, aside from like not feeling important, or like I don't know. I don't know if you
Well,
guys
like I used to be someone who I would get all on there and be like, "Ba-da-da-da-da-da," about this and that and whatever. And I'm like, well, you're wrong. And yeah, but you didn't look at it from this way. And it's like, why did I do that? And it's like, because I was very passionate about what I was talking about. But at the end of the day, and I mean, I've gotten myself to a place where I'm like, okay, if I want to make any kind of difference, one, I have to choose the audience I'm speaking to, because people are only going to want to hear what, one, they want to hear, two, what they're capable of hearing.
Mhm.
And then also, I'm like, it doesn't matter. So I'm going to have this huge giant fight on this laptop, on this screen. And then I'm going to just go about my day and nothing has been done except me and other people chirping at each other on the internet. And for what? Like literally no one goes anywhere. So when it comes to where it's like, why did I do that? It was like, I don't even know. All I kind of got to was like, this is pointless and stupid and not working. But for my actual motivation, it was just like wanting people to see my perspective, maybe, or to see it from a better point, or maybe I'm just trying to make the world more compassionate, but like that's not the way to do it. But like I don't know, but I would get triggered by something somebody said. I'm like, wow, they have to look at it from this way. They don't understand. I'm going to take it upon myself to know that they understand. And I don't know why.
I think there's like addicting is the wrong word, but well, maybe it's not. There's a component to it that like feels good while you're in the moment, right? There's something about because back in the day, I mean, as like Facebook style, I probably only did a couple times, but like if someone wanted to get in a competition, not a competition, like a conversation about things that we just see, even Freudian slip right there,
Yeah,
a competition.
I got that.
Then my favorite thing to do, and I admit this is douchey, so you guys can like already know that I know, but I'd be like, okay, where's your empirical evidence? Where are your peer-reviewed scientific journal articles? How did you use science to come to this conclusion? Because I'm an asshole that went to school. So I'm like, if you don't have like a Stanford backed study that says what you're saying is true, then I don't believe you. And the world's more nuanced than that. Like science is great and it's super helpful, but it isn't the only thing that exists in the world. But there's a hoity-toityness of that, like at least for me, that I think that was probably part of it, where it was like, well, let me show you how cool I am and how smart I am. And then we can talk about like whatever dumb shit you believe in that I don't, right?
The
So
academia.
yeah, and not a cute look, admittedly, but like I feel like out of our passion comes things that we've devoted time to. Does that make sense? We have like fear. Sorry, I'm just gonna keep saying the word fear so it feels like we're staying on topic. But my point is though, like whatever the thing is, we've probably put some time and effort into whatever it is that we care about. And it feels wasted, or it feels like we need to share that, or we feel like we need to show that. There's like a piece of that. There's a reason it's important.
Mm.
So that underlying reason maybe is why you're like, I'm a keyboard warrior. You're gonna watch the out,
There
right?
you go.
Interesting.
It's word boarding instead of waterboarding. It's word
Yeah,
boarding.
yeah.
You just torture other people until you get what you want.
I mean,
I mean,
like I can remember one of the only Facebook things that I did blow up on, like typing, was about it was somebody that I knew, like one of my parents' friends. This woman had like all the receipts from all the supplies she had bought for her third grade classroom, and was like trying to show that like, look, a lot of the money I make goes right back to this, and like it's not, yeah. So the guy was like, this is just coloring with kids for money all day long, doing nothing. Summer's off.
Scum.
Easiest life ever. And she's complaining about school supplies. This is such a racket.
Summer's off, not getting paid.
Yeah.
It'd be one thing if you're getting paid for the summer, but it's another, it's like imagine it's like the only full-time job where it's like, well, okay, there are probably plenty of other ones that I'm not aware of, but like, yeah, you're a teacher, right? It's like, well, yeah, like during the school year and during the summers, I'm just a broke ass person like everybody else. Like, wow, they're probably broke during the school year too, but
a lot of districts will let you divide your paycheck up so you're paid over the summer.
How nice of them.
Yes, I know, it's just incredible. But because I've worked in schools and because I was at the time in graduate school to work in schools, I was clearly very triggered by that because I had invested a lot of time and effort and like a lot of my life into trying to be somebody who could be helpful. And this person just all over all of it. And was he attacking me personally? No. But did I feel like it? Yeah. So
yeah.
I don't know.
Interesting. I think it's that feeling of being attacked. Actually, that kind of resonated because it's like, this is something I know about. This is something I'm passionate about. This is something I spent time into, and you're going to say this about it. Oh, actually, and it does feel like an attack on you because it's like, for whatever reason, what they're saying translates to you think what I'm doing is stupid or irrelevant or whatever, right? So all of a sudden it's like, I'm going to defend myself against this person I don't really necessarily know or care about, but here we go.
Yeah, it's like an invalidation of your worldview, I guess, essentially in that sense, where it's like, it's essentially saying you're wrong. And
yeah. And that's like literally, they're like, might not even know who I am, but I'm like, you're attacking me. It's like, are they?
And maybe that is the thing where it's like as Crystal and I have said in multiple sessions that we've done, we're still working with the same damn brain as when we were trying to not get killed by cheetahs in the savannas. You know what I mean? And at the end of the day, it's like your brain in that instance is just like attack. It is literally not configured for I feel attacked. There is no I feel attacked to the brain. It's either perception of danger or not perception of danger. And so it's, we have this thing now where some jackass typed something that I'm not even going to say is ignorant as hell, because people use the term ignorant to mean so many stupid things now. Misinformation, this is like whatever. But when people just seem like they're fully
man's butt
and it just comes out of nowhere, it's I guess we did kind of reach the heart of that, where it's just like it looks like a cheetah coming through our screens, or a panther, whichever your favorite, big.
But it's
that cat.
hilarious because like physiologically similar responses, right? Like you get wound up when you're in that space. Like your heart rate starts going and you're like quick fire trying to think of how you were going to essentially defend yourself. Nobody came for you. Nobody was like at Rebecca Plodden, I'm going to write this post you're going to hate. It's about you. And if that's the case, then I think obviously we're talking about different things at that point. But point being, it feels like it is. It feels like a direct attack, like someone came into your house and tried to steal your tiger meat that you just got yesterday. Whatever, like, you know what I mean? Like cave person.
Booty.
If someone has the balls to come and steal it, I may have heard you wrong, but to steal your tiger,
Meat, your tiger meat.
Tiger
Oh,
meats.
I do. I know I got it wrong, but I do prefer my version. Just imagine somebody showing up to your house, being like, "Yo, I'm gonna steal your tiger."
I think there was a plot in the Hangover where they tried to steal Mike Tyson's tiger. No?
I don't think they knew it was Mike Tyson's tiger,
Oh, okay.
which just explains why they tried to steal it, because nobody who's gonna steal from Mike Tyson. But even just that element of like the brain not knowing the difference between what it perceives as happening and what is actually happening makes me think of like the episode that we did last week about like how like horror movies and things like that kind of like essentially, I mean, I know there's a term for it, but it's like by way of how people respond to it and like invest themselves in it, kind of reveals things about people. And I think the mirror neuron element of it, maybe it's mirror neurons, maybe there's another thing, but the thing that allows them to basically perceive something as real because they're like involved with it, maybe that is like kind of like the flipped coin of that situation. Just like how if somebody's like arguing with you, it feels like they're literally attacking you. On the other end, by watching a horror movie and seeing all this scary stuff, you get that exhilaration of kind of like the chase and so on.
Yeah,
So,
a safe adrenaline burst, right?
yeah.
And to your point, it's kind of the same thing online because you're not face to face with the person. Like everybody's aware of the fact that you get to be a keyboard jockey from a safe distance.
I'm a master of taekwondo.
Taekwondo. Good.
I didn't come up with that. I just reused it.
I like it.
I've
I
never
was
heard
like, you should use that and stuff. I like that a lot.
But it's the same thing as the you know the meme that has a bunch of like Navy SEALs, but instead of guns they have keyboards. I don't know if you guys have seen that one before.
No,
but
that's great. It's great, but it's true too. And like the internet is really cool in the sense that like think of all the shit you can go on YouTube and type in how to and then anything, literally anything, and you can like learn whatever the you want to learn. And at the same time, I have to yell, or I feel like I have to yell at Bob from accounting on the internet about how he doesn't agree with whatever I don't agree with. Like the polarizing nature of like the good and the bad that you get on the internet is like pretty astounding.
Mm-hmm. It's really hard to like, because even not to jump into the politics thing, but I mean, you have your left and right, and it's like you're immediately left or right. When really,
you can't be in the middle.
People are right, or that's really where most people are. But it's just
No
like,
left.
oh, you're liberal. Oh, you're conservative. Oh, you're a Trump lover. Oh, you, whatever's going on with the left. But like, you know, and I even noticed like that I am. It's affecting me. Cause like I'm on, you know, I'll have like little dating apps or whatever, like talk to people and it's like, they'll say liberal and I'm like, I'm like, what's going on right now? If you're confident enough to identify publicly as a liberal, but I'm like, hey, what? Like, you can't think like that. Cause like, I used to, you know, be the most liberal person ever, but then with what everything's happening and I'm like, am I concerned? What? I don't even know what I am anymore because everything's so just messed up on all fronts. So it's like, you can't even talk to people without that judgment on something as simple as, I generally prefer this type of approach or generally this one. I believe this, I believe that. It's like, nope. Oh, you're that? Cool. Now it's black and white. Now we're enemies or we're not going to get along. And that's just not the case. Because obviously we all have friends we all believe million different things, right? And you're not going to judge somebody on that, but because everything's so charged and divided right now, like right now it's the politics, right? So it's like, oh, you're left, you're right, we're enemies. And it's just weird how it just polarizes people like that instead of just letting us be people, you know?
Well, that is the thing, like for me, when it comes to the politics element, because it's like, yeah, I never want to be doing like a session episode, whatever, where it's like, oh, like this is what's wrong with, you know, X group the entire time or whatever, because it's like it's you know, if you think like all the it doesn't even matter. Like there's one, like I have one buddy who like is so into the right camp, whatever you want to call it, that he'll talk about the liberal agenda and stuff like that. It's like, dude, like any defined perspective is going to have an agenda. You can throw words in front of it and it's fine, but it's like if you go through history, every one of these groups things up every time. Okay,
Yeah,
let's
well,
really look at it. Like
none of them are any better than the
Yeah.
others. Like
yeah,
at
there
the
is
end of the
no
day.
good guy,
Yeah.
good gal,
Yes.
whatever.
And then it's like, oh, well, did you read the news? And they said this. It's like, okay, yeah, turn on the other channel. And the other side saying the exact same thing about the other
Yes.
side. Like, I can take one side and be like, well, this is why you're bad. And this is why I'm right. And then you can turn on the other station and it's the exact same thing on the other way. This is why I'm bad. And this is why you're right. And on both sides, it's like feeding into that, like, I think that really the compassionate nature of humans, where it's like we want to be moral, we want to do good. So then they demonize other people saying that, oh, well, they're attacking this, or oh, you're going to lose this. And it's like both sides have their own arguments to make the same point. And it's like, you can't say who's right or wrong. You have to go just based off your own morals and values and just decide that way.
Well, I think this is another example of like when I was talking earlier about cherry picking information, because you can make a case. If you are a logical, emotionally detached thinker, let's pretend we're aliens coming down here. We don't know. And you're trying to figure out, who are you for? And you logically and unemotionally, which is pretty much impossible if we're being honest with each other, look at the information and you're like, oh, well, I mean, literally there's depending on how you look at it, I can make a case logically for either or.
Mhm.
But again, we don't use logic as much as we react from like emotion, from an emotional place. And that is why the news and the media and like whoever you want to blame, that's like the big guy up, like, you know, broad level, they prey on emotions. We do this as copywriters. All of us have written copy at some point. Like
New Harvard studies show.
But how do we sell to people? We sell their emotions.
Yeah. And then you see it, like you can hear it in these news things. I'm like, I could write what you're speaking to, because I'm like, here's this point, here's your pain point, here how I'm addressing it. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, this is what I do, and this is what is being fed to the public on news stations. I'm like, this is wild. Like, it was crazy. I was like, that hit me hard because I could like see it. I was like, fully
sunglasses.
So I just obviously don't watch it anymore because I'm like, nope.
Honestly, that sounds like a really
Scum
recommendation, but I'm in the same camp. I get an email in my like every Friday I get an email of a summary of what happened in the week, like bullet points of the news, because I can't do this, guys.
Yeah.
I can't. Or my husband, if something important happens, he'll go, hey, you know, you don't watch the news. Did you hear this happen? And I'll be like, no. Like, that's
Well, it's all negative too.
Yeah, it's hard to stay informed without being manipulated. And that's where I get very stuck. And I'm like,
Yes.
I'm like, okay, that happened. And now I have no feeling around it. I have no questions, because depending on who's telling me what, I'm going to get a different story to make me believe something. So it's like, no.
Yeah, I think it was actually the owner of, like, when newspapers were like basically like the Facebooks and stuff like that of like their time, the owner of one of the most like prestigious ones. I mean, here I am already, you know, boosting authority by saying the owner of it. You can't help it. But he said, you know, if you don't read the newspaper, you're uninformed. If you do read the newspaper, you're misinformed. And that's the best way of just summarizing it, no matter what whatever newspaper means. And, you know, in the age, it's like, and so much of it, again, like coming back to the fear element, it's like it is negative. Like if you comb through all that stuff, most of it is negative. But the interesting thing here for me is that because people love blaming big this, big that, you know, these rich people, those wealthy things, the organization, one that, it's like, but they forget that the reason why newspapers and all this other stuff are doing that is because that is what people read. That is what people watch. That is what people in general pay attention to. And so while they're busy blaming external thing, because as we've already established, people love blaming the other thing as the bad guy, and now we're the righteous group. They basically just ignore the fact that the only reason why they're being fed negative stuff, and okay, not the only reason, but probably the main reason, is because most people are negative. And for all this, and this is a reason why I have such a, like, why I have the hate that I do for the what is considered the more like left brand of wokeness, because it's like there's all this talk about like being considerate of this and support this and all. So it's like, but it's all booty. It's just a bunch of people being negative who are saying, oh, well, you should do this and you should do that. It's like, okay, so because I'm not doing this thing that you think makes me good, I'm bad. So you're just finding another reason why I'm bad. How is this any better than anything else?
Yeah, it's like negativity disguised as like compassion.
Right.
Like, you know, you're gonna think this or love all this, but blah blah blah. You know, like it's supposed to be this like accepting thing. You want to accept everybody and make everyone feel appreciated, but there's this underlying like, if you don't, you're evil, you know, and it's like, what?
This is why I've always struggled with religion, organized religion, because of that, exactly what you just said. Because it's like, no, we love and accept you exactly the way you are, but if you don't come every Sunday and you don't tithe or teeth, what is it when you give them money? Tithe?
Tithe.
Tithe, if you don't give me your money, and if you don't love Jesus all the time, and if you don't do this and that and this and eat his dead body every week.
It goes back to the George Carlin thing, where it's like,
Are you kidding?
He's all
Yeah.
powerful, all knowing, somehow just can't handle money.
Yeah, like the idea, there's so much negativity in, I mean, so I grew up Catholic, and then denounced my Catholic faith around like 12 or 13, because I was like, you know why? Because I learned how many people were in, we had a geography lesson on how many people existed in the world in 6th grade. And then they broke down like, and this percent is Buddhist, and this percent is, and they were like, and like 15% are Christian. And I was like, no. You said Christian. How many are Catholic? I need the Catholic numbers. And so when they were like, we don't know, Crystal, that's a weird question. My point was that I like broke the math down in my head, and I was like, so you're telling me that like only the Catholics are going to heaven, and like all these other are going straight to hell because they're not baptized, obviously. And like unless I like go to Africa on a mission to be like, here's God, you can have him too. They're all like, it's on me, first of all, and second of all these
marshmallow,
and third of all and then I was done. I couldn't believe that God could be that mean and be like, you know what, only the people that are in the know, and if you're in the know, you better go and make everyone else in the know.
you judge me?
Show up for these people. I'm not your God, like I'm not working for free. And I know that
I'm
pisses a lot of
working
people off.
for free.
You know, that'll piss a lot of people off, and that's fine. That's just, well, that was my reaction to it. To your point, though, getting back on track of what you were saying, it's this negativity disguised as righteousness. And that is really motivating for people. You know, to hear that if you don't X, you will burn in hell for the rest of eternity. That's pretty motivating for behavior, right? And that's what fear does, is motivate behavior. So politics or religion, man, you guys want to talk about money next?
I mean, that's the thing, like ultimately, because you can't have like what's basically a forum for having important discussions without eventually talking about important things, right? And so just the only place that I come from there we go, is to have respect for the other people who are actually like do have a good head on their shoulders. Like that is why I've had my buddy Maddie on the podcast. Well, Chrislyn and my buddy Maddie, say that 5 times fast. And he, you know, he's a bow hunter, and I'm a vegetarian, and like I can't, like for me, and like I would rather like everybody have to eat freaking tofu than being like, oh, you know, let's just raise this thing to, you know, to kill it, you know, like that still disgusts me. And granted, he was talking like hunting and farming are not the same thing, but you know what I'm saying? It's like,
Right.
Like you physically don't have to go and kill this thing in order to have sustenance.
Exactly.
And that's not where he was coming from with it, but it's like, again, like that could easily have been a powder keg. me talking to Lauren like every time.
I
Like
was just thinking
he's
that.
a very religious person, has a lot of faith in his belief system and where he comes from with it. I there are many things with that I do not agree with at all. We've talked for probably like 4 hours or so, like on podcast, no arguments. That is what it comes down to, is like if people have respect for each other and they're actually thinking from things from like, oh, well, I don't have an answer for that. Or, well, that's not how I see it, but like, I can see how you're coming from, with that. Then it's okay. But there is shit wrong with politics. There is like stuff wrong with like religion. And I don't think there's a single person of faith, as I think they would say, who would claim that organized religion doesn't have any issues whatsoever.
Yeah, I think you're right.
mean, like, then they would be too stupid to be someone I like,
Yeah.
Well, to your point, like with the examples of Maddie and Lauren, which both of these, I love both of those people immensely. I have so much respect for both of them.
Matt Murphy's in the comments too, so he loves
Matt Murphy, we love you. We love you, Matt Murphy. You should come on sometime. Well, lost my train of thought because of Matt Murphy. Thanks, Matt Murphy.
And he's just a scene stealer. Matt Murphy just takes everything.
Yes, he sure is. My thought was, okay, so the interactions that you're talking about having with Lauren and Maddie were interactions you had after you already had some kind of established connection with them, right? And you had them in a manner that wasn't through text or commenting. It was either like in a meeting, like a video meeting like this, or in person. So you've already removed a lot of like the things that make it very easy to be a keyboard jockey and demonize another person, because you've already established meeting them on a level where it didn't involve these hot button topics. Because when you first met Maddie and when you first met Lauren, I'm sure you weren't talking about politics or religion or vegetarianism or anything more. My mouth are. Right. But you met them in a more benign space, right? So you already got to humanize them. You got to put them in the category as like, oh, these are people. And they already were in an in-group for you, because both of those people you met in the copywriting world. So they were part of your in-group as far as like, these are my people. Then when you learned that their morals or values didn't completely align exactly with where yours were, you're like, oh shit, now I have this like conflict in my brain where I know them historically as someone that's in my in-group, but now they have things that are in like an out-group for me.
See, that's the thing though. It's like, for me, that doesn't put them in the out-group in my sense, simply because what makes somebody an in-group thing for me is the kind of person they are. I don't care, like if you want to color this coloring book and I want to color this coloring book, I don't care. The more thing is like, well, we value like doing the coloring ourselves. You know what I mean? Just to put it very simply. And it's like, I can't stand the frigging girl power stuff that's happening everywhere because I'm an individualist. Women don't do this. A woman does this. A woman does that. Yes. Like, individuals do things. Mm-hmm. And yet I have a number of people that I know who, they have started like this group for women or whatever. It's like, it's not like I'm going to like attack someone who I previously had respect for because the way that they're doing something that I also want to be doing is going in a way that I don't necessarily agree with, because it's like, well, there's also a difference between, well, this is a group for women and, this is a group that's essentially saying is like, oh yeah, like, it is just doing the man-hating thing. You know what I mean? There's a difference between those two things too.
Yeah.
So I think that the big thing for me, at least, where it comes to the in-group, out-group thing, is having like a holistic sense of that. Yeah. You know what I mean? At least that's where I come from with it.
For sure. I also think too that like when I said that, I didn't mean like this is how Isaac Hyde defines people. Like I think of it more from the perspective of like our brains, back to the fact that we haven't upgraded the model, like the functioning model of brain in like, 50,000 years, is programmed to find the fastest, most efficient way to categorize things. And this gets us in a lot of trouble, right? Like if you are making snap judgments because your brain tells you, hey, remember when we were still running from lions trying not to get eaten? We had to do a lot of this. It wasn't like nuanced to the sense of like, how are you not going to like ostracize people and like come off as standoffish or whatever? We make these snap judgments because our brain told us that's how we survived in our environment. And our environment's changed so much since then. It doesn't really serve us great in a lot of instances. So that's all I meant by like in person, out of my group, in my group, whatever. But obviously Isaac has risen above his standard operating system, which we all appreciate immensely.
Well, man, I'm doing my best. It's just like, but at the same time, like, you know, like we're having all these deep conversations and whatnot, right? But that didn't change the fact that when you're talking about running from lions, I immediately thought of that meme where it's like, did you know that lions can jump 20 feet or 30 feet? It's like leap. They can leap 30 feet. If lions could jump 30 feet and come down, we would not have gotten out of Africa.
Oh my God, that would have
Literally how it went.
sucked. They're like the ultimate apex predator. Oh, fuck.
Freaking paratrooping from the skies.
They also have lasers in their eyes.
No, that's the sharks. That's the great white sharks. Freaking laser sharks. Or no, it was laser beams attached to their head. Sorry, I had my Austin
Right.
Powers history wrong. But
Yeah, with the program, Isaac. I
Yeah,
think
I-
another like big thing though about the way like that super strong response, besides the like the natural biological urges, is like people have a need to be right. And that I think, because if I'm not right, I'm wrong. That means I failed or I suck or whatever, right? So even if it's something that maybe you don't even necessarily care about and have a different opinion, someone goes, well, actually, no, because of this,
or whatever.
you're immediately going to defend yourself.
If it's something that
Shit, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
damn it,
Okay.
Kristlyn, stop
It was
having that
really
ADHD
meta. It
going.
got really meta because I accidentally clicked on our podcast that's playing. So it got
Okay.
super meta.
I guess that's
I was like, is that us talking?
Yeah, it was. It was us
So was-
talking. Don't worry about it. It's
so. Was
fine.
it Rebecca interrupting Rebecca?
Yeah, that was weird. Can you
Rebecca, you
not
should
do
have
that
more
to my brain right
self-respect.
now?
Just trying to scramble it. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, so it's just there's a need to be right, and I think that's where people, they don't know how to back off, and that contributes to people like us being able to have these conversations, or even with someone who is completely against what you believe in, like the vegetarianism or the Catholic faith or whatever, to be able to have these conversations and not get crazy, is because you've like kind of risen above that need to be right. I don't have to be right about this. So I am very open to hearing what you have to say, and I'm interested, because the more perspective I hear from you, that just gives me a better understanding of everything around me, right? Like it's just my way of thinking always. What kind of life is that, you know? And I love when people change my mind. Like I can be super crazy passionate about something. I'm like, no, I'm right, and this and that, and they'll say a couple things, and I'm like, okay, good point. I see it, you know, and I love when people can do that. And I'm not going to, you know, just fight for the sake of fighting and to stay right, because at the end of the day, it's not about being right. It's just, to me, just about learning more and having a better understanding, whether it's something I believe in or agree with or not. So, and I think that's how, again, we can have these conversations without going at each other's throats, because there is that awareness, you know, and some people don't have it, and that's how they get crazy and things get out of control.
Yeah, and it's the way I always phrase it, at least, is I don't care about being right. I just want to be correct, because it's one of those things where like when, because I'll get very like heated about things. I get intense about things when I don't mean to be intense about it. And people's like, why are you getting so crazy about this? Like, I'm not, like, at least on the Isaac scale, this is not intense.
Yeah.
And
I'm remembering a conversation about the size of coffees in Europe.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I stand by it. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, fine, maybe the coffee's better, but we still have more of it. So
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
but it's like, at the end of the day, for me, it's like, I don't care about charging headfirst into something and be like, well, this is how I see it. This is like, I'm not going to doubt myself. It doesn't make sense to doubt yourself. You can be open-minded, but if you doubt yourself, you're essentially saying that what you believe is not correct, but then you're also delegitimizing the doubt in the first place, because they're all coming from the same place. And so now the doubt is illegitimate. You literally create the philosophical version of that illogical paradox that people use to like break robots and stuff in some movies.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm not going to doubt myself, but like, I don't care about being shown that I'm wrong, because again, what I want to do is be correct. And so if what I believed was correct is shown to me, at least convincing to me that it wasn't, oh no, I don't care. Like, what did I do? Did I get punched? No, it doesn't mean
Right.
anything. I just adapt to it. And I think that that is a big reason why people are so like if you think about it, and I've talked about this in other podcasts where like people love to put like that group of people into like this like psychologically damaged group or whatever. Like there's something special about them. But it's like if you last night there was a Bills game. I don't watch football, but Buffalo Bills game. I heard these people screaming their heads off in response to this. It doesn't change your life. You didn't do anything impressive or fail. Literally none of this, and I know I'm losing like all the sports fans right now, but like you didn't do shit. Nothing changed in your life aside from the water cooler talk that people are going to have later on. And yet they were going as crazy as like if somebody responded to something else, it'd be like, what is wrong with that person?
Yeah.
And so for me, I think when you look at how these people in general are reacting, I don't mean just sports fans now, I mean just people in general, to like perspectives that are different than theirs or whatever, it is, if you put this in like a vacuum, people would call it psychotic, but it's not because
Sports.
it's a common experience. Right?
Jinx.
Exactly.
Jinx to Rebecca. I actually have a question for both of you. I think this will be interesting, so bear with me. Based on this whole conversation, I want to know if you can think of any values or morals that you possess that if someone didn't align with you on that, you would be like, nope, I don't want to associate with this person.
Cruelty. Because for me, if you experience cruelty or have cruelty in that sense, and I don't mean like you don't care about someone else's suffering, I mean that you want to cause suffering. That for me goes back to how you do anything is how you do everything. And if you are someone who will be cruel in that sense, like I'll kill a motherfucker for a Klondike bar. I don't care. Like if I can get away with it. But I'm not going to do it because I want to cause them pain.
Right.
You know what I mean? And
You just want the Klondike bar. Got it.
to date, I have not killed anybody for any reason related to anything besides self-defense. But the point being is that
Fucking AI.
cruelty to me is just that thing where it's like fundamentally to me, that is a world that I don't want to be in, where people are being cruel. Because you literally, I don't see how you could have anything working where people enjoy something else suffering. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of along the same lines, but I was thinking lack of compassion.
Hmm.
And not like people can be like, oh, that's not really my thing, I don't really care. But like if you see someone or something suffering and you can help them and you don't, that bothers me. And like I know that's totally you as a person, like cool, you're not, but if I'm like walking and there's something happens and I witness somebody just go meh when they could have made a big difference, I'm probably not going to spend that much time with them, because for me, I want the people in my life to be, they want to help, they want to do things, and you don't have to go like crazy out of your way to do it, but just like have that capacity and that desire to like, if I see suffering, I want to help alleviate it if I can, not like, oh, fuck that, they deserve it. Or, stuff like that. Like the people on the homeless people, well, they fucked up and they deserve, no, I'm going to have a hard time, Yes, Isaac.
If you're listening to this in the future, I had my hand up. So let me ask a like 1A question. You know what I mean? Like press tab, create a sub bullet. When it comes to that element of compassion for people, how do you, I can say reconcile, because that almost sounds like an emotional thing, but like how do you balance it out like rationally in the sense of like also like people's responsibility as well? Because I think there's also definitely a trend of like people saying, essentially trying to make everyone else feel guilty for not taking responsibility for someone else, like even when it is, their responsibility as well. So just to hear your thought on that.
So I think if it's not, it doesn't have to be your responsibility. And to me, it's more of an added benefit of a person that I like to see in the people that I know. Because I'm not going to say it is your responsibility, because it absolutely isn't. But for you to just at least have some care and concern about it is something that is important to me. Because to just not care, to not do something and not be able to do something is one thing, but to just not care is like, it hurts me. Even though it's not even directed to me, it hurts me. So it's like, oh, you think that way? What do you mean you don't? Like if an injured dog or something, they're like, well, fuck it, like you call or like anything. Like, I don't know. I can't leave something. And it's not that I'm going to, like, if I'm walking down the street and someone doesn't give a homeless person money, I'm not like this person. You know what I mean? Because like I don't do that all the time. You can't save everybody, right? But if you can and it's easy for you to help, then I think that someone you should. And that's like, should, I know it's a dangerous word. Like, again, because that implies responsibility. But I think it's just, I like generous people. I like the people who are compassionate and the ones that want to help when they can.
I think you can have compassion. Like, I like this example of people who are homeless, because I feel like this is another very divided subject where there's a party of people who are like very, very sternly standing in the personal responsibility end of things. And then there is another side that is looking at social structures and how the current like setup is contributing to an increase in homelessness, right? Like, I feel like those are kind of the two sides, if you're going to have sides. And I think you can be in either side and still feel compassion towards someone who is very much struggling. No matter what the fuck is going on in your life, if you are homeless, whether it's from addiction or bad choices or like, I don't fucking know, you're definitely not having a good time.
Yeah.
You don't have to give them money, but to be able to say like, this person, life really fucking sucks for this person right now. And like, I remember times when my life really sucked and like, I wasn't doing so hot. And I hope that that person can turn it around and find some better outcomes for themselves. So I really agree with you, Rebecca, on that, with like the compassion part, because you don't have to take responsibility for someone else or something else to have compassion for it and to just say, but because I think what ends up happening is we get this very repulsive, judgmental reaction sometimes where we're like disgusted with the choices someone else would make to be in that position. And now you're draining my tax money on blah, 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 it just, the domino effect starts happening. And we forget that this is like a person. And yeah, maybe their decisions have been shit and maybe they are straining the system and all of these things. But like, at the end of the day, do you think they were born and when they were 5 years old and someone was like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they're like, I want to be a drain on government tax money. I like don't think that anyone has ever thought that. And there's also arguments to be made for like the welfare queens and like children who are raised watching their parents collect welfare money or disability money when they're perfectly fine and could be going out. And I want to clarify, I think this is a extremely small group of people. And I think that it can be very much inflated where people think that everyone collecting any kind of assistance is in this group. Point being, doesn't matter. Isaac and I have had this conversation before too, where like exceptions to the rule usually can get very blown out of proportion, right? And that's where fixation tends to like drift, where we're like, but even so, like, if you can imagine the worst case scenario of what a person's doing, just picture the person that is revolted the most by whoever you're thinking of, right? And just still, regardless, even if you think they're a total piece of
scum,
and if you can still just go, yeah, but like also must really suck to just like not feel like you're contributing to the world and have 2 kids and have no outlook on any improvement for them and like know you're being looked down on people. That feeling, now we're humanizing it, right? Even if you disagree with all of the behaviors and actions, you can still have compassion for like the actual human that's living and breathing.
Yes, that's exactly what I was trying to explain, and you did it perfectly.
Oh, thanks.
Well, because it's that like, oh, I'll get a job, do this, do that, or their decisions. I'm like, you don't know what happened. You think that's what they want, So it's like the active negative thoughts about it too, is where it's like they seem to have to make a point to say, well, they made bad choices or they're doing this, and it's like, okay, and it's
I'm sure this person with the judgment has never made a bad choice in their whole life. So they can,
Right. And
they
those
can
people
freely
are
say these.
generally like just not nice people anyway, right? So yeah, those are the people that I'm like, no. Mm-mm.
It's an interesting thing for me because like the way that I always phrase it when it comes to myself is that I have a small heart but a good one. And the reason for this is because, and I've had, shall we say, discussions about this as well, and kind of compassion definitely is different from mine in certain senses where it's like, and it's something that I point out as well is like that element of like inherent compassion. For me, the thing is like I generally, like I do try to give people the benefit of the doubt. I'm also, like, as I've said numerous times, an ardent believer that how you do anything is how you do everything. And so, yes, the state of being homeless does not mean that you messed your life up because I mean, who, you could have had a home with somebody else and then, this person screwed you over and like that. It's like this was literally just day one. You just didn't get the chance to do your laundry. You know what I mean? Like it could be as simple as that, right? But the thing that I usually look at is how is this person approaching the situation? Because I don't have compassion for people because they're in tough circumstances. I have compassion for people who are trying to make things work. And for me, those two are very different things because, I mean, you have people complaining about how they're not getting paid enough who make a point of always having the latest smartphone. You know what I mean? And no, I don't have compassion for you if you're saying it's like, oh, the rich, this, that, whatever. It's like you buy designer brand clothing every day on Amazon, every year when Prime Day or whatever comes around, you're buying crap loads of stuff, you're driving all these different places, you have the newest phone, you have the big ass TV. Like, I don't feel sorry for you. I don't care if you're making, $2,000 a month. Like, and I was there. I made $14,000 like the entire year of 2019. I know what it's like to be scratching by. But when I was doing that, I was still investing in my band at the time. Like the way that people respond to situations is like the defining factor for me. So it's like, yes, if you're homeless, like it probably is a lot harder to get like a job, for example, because you don't have like a home address, right? But there are also programs depending on where you are for getting those people, so it's like at the end of the day, what makes me have compassion for someone is the individual responding to that situation, not the person who is in that situation. Because if you're homeless because you had like a job that was paying like $4,500 a month and you kept putting that into drugs, then I get it that you had compulsions. Maybe you grew up with addicts and stuff. But I grew up with alcoholics. I'm not an alcoholic. I had to frigging kill someone in self-defense when I was in elementary school. I didn't become a serial killer. So it's like for me, as someone who has been in a lot of extreme situations myself, I know what it's like to be in that case and like have the compulsion to be like this or that, but to know that you still have the responsibility to choose something else. So it is definitely a fine line to walk in that sense, at least for me.
I think, well, first of all, let me just comment on like, thank you for sharing your experience on that.
Sure.
Yes.
But also, this would be a great follow-up podcast to do just on personal responsibility, because I feel like this is its own topic. And I feel like there's a lot to unpack on personal responsibility because I feel like in a lot of arguments or a lot of things that have two sort of polar sides to it, this theme keeps coming up again. And it's a lot of like the goddamn Gen Zers, you know what I mean? Like I feel like this is a sentiment. Yeah, it's a sentiment we keep hearing though, like nobody's got any responsibility anymore. And it's very interesting to me how people decide what they feel responsible to do and what they don't. And like coming from the same family, when I look at like how my siblings and I have grown differently and gone about our lives differently and taken responsibility differently, even from the exact same upbringing, it's crazy how much of a variation there is with this particular topic.